Hi, I'm Matt Hernandez, and this is Book Chat with You. In this podcast, I try to structure nearly every episode as if though it's trying to be a conversation, or at least some effort or some attempt to have an imaginary conversation with you. It's an invitation for us to try to talk about books and literature together. For now, I'm focusing more on short stories and other just shorter texts that we can try to discuss together. So, I am still continuing on Carol Shields' collected stories, as you can see here, and I'll try to show a picture of Carol Shields here, along with a better picture of the cover of the book. Now, we are on the third story from her collected volume, Various Miracles, because this collected stories, I believe, is a collection of 3 different collections of short stories. Inside of this first short story called Accidents, inside of this short story, we only have a few characters, and they all seem to be nameless. A husband, his wife. The story is told from first person, from the husband's perspective, his wife, a doctor, and a person who had been injured riding his motorcycle. So it is quite interesting to have a story with nameless characters. I suppose at times I do not think about my wife's name. I just think, wife, my dear, um, this type of thing. At times, this might be how we respond to people. Or at times, if somebody, we might need to think about a particular doctor or something like that, you just say, my doctor. So this story, it almost seems like it would have some kind of a fantasy-ish element, because the wife was just um, on the balcony, and a glass just seemed to just spontaneously just explode or something. It looks like this might have been something about it, but then in her fear, she embraces her husband. But when she kind of pulls away, her earring sort of scratches her husband's face, leaving a big gash. They go to the hospital. Now, this story takes place in France, and it seems like many of Carol Shields' stories are very Canadian in nature. You might be thinking, well, the story's in English, takes place in France, but how's it very Canadian? Because the man's wife can speak fluent French, and it's because she had lived in Montreal. Now, to my knowledge, I've met plenty of Canadians in my life, and maybe somebody can correct me in the comments, which nobody does, because the only comments I ever get on any of these videos might be on Rumble about something, asking if I want more assistance to make higher quality videos and all that stuff. But on that note, I am starting to upload these as podcast forms as well, because maybe instead of focusing on one of the 2 platforms I post these on, maybe I should post these on other platforms as well. Maybe I shouldn't have said any of that, and I've not distracted myself from the synopsis review of the story. So as far as I've known, with I think every Canadian I've known, none of them can speak French. They can do some basic stuff in French, but that's about it. But there's still something quite Canadian about that with this character, and so quite a few of her stories are quite Canadian in nature. So at the hospital, they have the husband, the main character, will have to share a room with another patient because so many of the rooms are full. So then the young man who they're sharing a room with, he has like a full body cast, and at one moment he says, "Am I dead?" He asked her in English, "Did you say I was dead?" "Well," she replies, "of course you aren't dead." And so as it kind of goes on, the wife, she reads in the Herald Tribune about a Canadian race car driver who had passed away. Now, then what happens, and I suppose I'm spoiling the whole story in a sense, it's a very short story, but the young man passed away. And so he passed away, and the husband decides not to tell his wife. This leaves us a lot that we can discuss. It leaves us with quite a bit that we can discuss here in this story. So I'm going to try to show the page here from page 47, at least in this printed edition. And then I'll read a tiny bit from page 48 and give a few more thoughts about what we could discuss together here. So here from the top of page 47. Mine is a profession that is close to being unique. At least I know of no one else who does the same sort of work on a full-time basis. I am an abridger. When I tell people at a party, for instance, that I'm an abridger, their faces cloud with confusion, and I always have to explain. What I do is take the written work of other people and compress it. For example, I'm often hired by book clubs to condense or abridge the books they publish. I also abridge material that is broadcast over the radio. It is a peculiar profession, I am the first to admit, but it's one I fell into by accident. Ah, accident, huh? And that I seem suited for. Abridging requires a kind of inverse creativity. One must have a sharp eye for turning points and a seismic sensitivity for the fragile, indeed invisible, tissue that links one event with another. I am well paid for my work, and I sometimes think that the degree of delicacy is not appreciated. There are even times when it is necessary to interfere with the truth of a particular piece for the sake of clarity and balance. Exercise a small and inconspicuous act of creativity that is entirely my own. I've never thought of this as dishonesty and never felt that I had tampered with the integrity of my work. My wife will be here soon. I'll watch her approach from the window of my hospital room. She still walks with a kind of boyish clip-clop, as though determined to possess the pavement with each step. This morning she'll be wearing her navy blazer. It's chilly, but it will probably warm up later in the day. She'll probably have her new yellow cardigan on underneath, but I won't be able to tell from here if she's wearing earrings. My guess is that she won't be. In her hand she'll have a small cloth bag, and I can imagine this contains the picnic we'll be taking to us to Mort. I hope I said that correctly. I did look it up again after re-recording this, and I hope I got that correct. But then she says on the next page, how is he? How is our poor young friend with the broken leg? Husband replies, he's been moved to a different place. So this is quite an important concept, or important point that we could discuss. You know, overseas, such as in China, for instance, I have heard that people don't always tell their sick elderly relatives that they're, well, sick and stuff. Well, I guess they'll know if they're elderly, but you don't tell them if they're sick. Maybe if you don't tell them that they're elderly either. Maybe you just don't tell anybody that they're elderly. Ever thought of that? Nah, just kidding. But anyways, so it does happen. And would you tell somebody this? So, and then if they could just have a nice picnic, go about their day. He's an abridger. He just abridged, right? To him, he's kind of like doing his job. Is it lying? Well, obviously there is a lie there. He's been moved to a different place. Well, wait a minute. In a sense, that's not a lie, is it? So is it a lie or is it not a lie? I mean, there is quite a bit that we can discuss with this part of the story right here. And I'd love to discuss it with you. And I think that's about it. This video is probably long enough. And have a wonderful day. Bye.